The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
I used to drive all the way to your side on the dark road. How can I ever explain if you don't know by now?
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 74, and our guest is Matt Goud. Matt is best known as Northcote. He's a singer and songwriter from Canada whose latest wonderful record is called Let Me Roar. Y'all, we covered so much ground in this conversation. Matt challenged my thinking, and he was so open and honest, and I'm so grateful that y'all get to hear it now.
To make me feel all that's in between the lines, and so many nights, all the highs and the lows of the road and this crooked smile. So I wait 1,000,000 years or more, drive away and never come home. You cut me loose and then you let me.
Hey y'all, before we get to our conversation with Matt, I just want to give a huge shout out to our brand new Patreon patron, the newest member of our Patreon community, Graydon. Thank you so much, Graydon, for your support. Y'all, go check out Graydon's music. Scalise is the name of his band. They're great. They're from Minnesota. They've got a really good thing going on. Their most recent record is called From Nothing to Nothing. It was released last year. You can find it on Spotify. And I've been able to connect with Graydon on Twitter, and I'm just so grateful for you being a part of the community, Graydon, the Patreon community that we have. Everybody else, I'll say more about Patreon later, but I wanted to spend just a second to say thank you so much, Graydon. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate your music. All right, everybody, it's time for our conversation with Matt Goud, better known as Northcote.
It's alright, time moves on. So I wait 1,000,000 years or more, drive away and never come home. Cut me loose and then you let me roar. There was a time when you had my back, now I'm like the dust on the dash. You cut me loose and then
for doing this.
Hey, good to see ya.
It's so
You're
good.
welcome.
It's so good to see you. I'm really excited, man. I've been devouring Let Me Roar, and I'm loving it, and I'm so excited to talk to you, man. It's really an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, right on. I appreciate the call.
So the record Let Me Roar is wonderful, like I said, and I read an interview that said that you struggled with writer's block leading up to the record. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, 2017, I kind of came off the road from Hope is Made of Steel. Mm-hmm. And it was time to write the next record. And around that time, my wife and I were living in this up island on Vancouver Island in a town called Nanaimo. And I was working on a painting crew. And during that time, that was the 2016 election and the end of touring for me for a while. And I was struggling to find myself kind of outside of music too. I was painting houses and not very good at it. Kind of, and I was spending so much time writing, and I was desperately writing. I was trying to write songs like like a football team trying to run through the banner, like I was quite defensive and like trying to almost write songs like a wrestler. And that was a long process for me. And, because I was thinking I should write a political record. I should write this type of record. I should do this. I should do that. And I was struggling to let anything natural, to feel anything natural. So that was a long process for me. For today, I'm thankful that I'm kind of on the other side of that. It's something that I still struggle with, but it was such an intense time for me. I was like really uptight, kind of like Jason right now. I'm kind of putting my dukes up like a fighter.
Yeah.
On this call, and that's how I felt.
Do I need to cover my face?
No. But I was a defensive.
Yeah.
I was just so defensive during that time. So that led to it's hard to write songs for me when I feel like that.
It's hard to write anything if you feel like that, right? Like it doesn't come out, it comes out defensive, doesn't it? Like, rather than being something that maybe you naturally wanted. So how did you, like, what happened that helped you get through that? Like, how did you get past the defensiveness and into this place of creativity?
Well, I kind of, during that time, I drank a lot of alcohol. Mm-hmm. I withdrew from others. I spent a lot of time alone with my struggle. And I reached kind of an end to that, it's like there was like that fire burning in me. And then when I was exhausted, and one morning I started sleeping in our apartment where my wife and I live now. It's a 2-room apartment. So there's one room is kind of an office and one room is this open room where we sleep. And I was just sleeping in the office on the floor, and I was really kind of not there. And one morning, she kind of looked at me, and I looked at her, and I just kind of knew it was time to try anything. And so I got some professional help, and I reached out to the band, and I reached out to a studio, and I just started kind of reaching out instead of going in that fighter's pose. And for me, I'm proud I had the courage to do that, because for me, I'm supposed to be a tough guy and have my shit together and know the way. And at that time I did not, lots of times I don't. So, for when I think about the record, I think, like now, as we're talking today, when I think about Let Me Roar, I think, I finally went out and got some help in different ways with my music and my personal life and stuff. So it's just inch by inch, but I kind of, even though I've been a musician for a long time, it felt like another jump.
So much of that resonates with me. I think I'll be 40 in a week, I guess. Next week I turn 40. And there's something about that milestone that has kind of like that has really amplified the idea that I'm supposed to have my shit together, right? Like in my own, no one is projecting that onto me. Like no one is really expecting anything different from me than what I've already been living, right? But I have been catching myself lately having to dismiss a lot of those ideas of like kind of what you were saying, having your shit together and having it all kind of figured out, so to speak. Whereas I just don't, and I don't know that 20 years from now I will, I know what works for me and I know what's important to me. And if I'm doing those things, then it's great. Right.
Yeah.
just letting go of sort of whatever those expectations are, and only having the expectation that I'm going to do the things that I know help me to be healthy and happy.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful, Jason. I like when you share that, I hear somebody, you said, I know what's important to me, and I know what I like to do. I mean, and here on this music call, it's like, this is me having my shit together. This is what it looks like.
Right.
Right.
No, that's really well said. Exactly. Like you're looking at it right now. Like this is where I need to be, right in this moment. We're creating something together, right? We're doing this thing together. And even if it's just a conversation and it becomes a podcast, it's still, I know that I need to do that. I know I need to create. I know that I need to sit down and do the work. And speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about what it looks like when you're doing the work. Are you a get up and do the work every day kind of person? Or does it come in spurts? Like, what does your process look like? And I'm also curious about whether it has changed since you stopped drinking.
Yeah. Oh, that's a cool question, because let me think about this. During those times before Let Me Roar, I kept a fairly I kept a schedule, like almost like an office hours. I would show up, write songs and stuff, and have a really intense time. And then it kind of depends on my financial situation and needs of the family. Like, do I have money that I'm contributing to the family? If not, I need to go work. So sometimes it depends on work schedule. And but I kind of have a blend. Like what was the question? Before I started drinking, or what is this?
like has your, so my
Sorry,
question is, no, it's all good. I think, because I have a tendency to pack in like 12 things in one question. My question was like, what is your process like normally? And has that your creative process, and how has that process, if at all, changed since, you stopped drinking?
The first thing that comes to mind, without being flowery, is before, when I feel like I'm less of a performative person now in my writing, and personally I'm in my writing, because when I was coming up songwriting, I think I wanted to fit in or be excellent like my peers. And so I wrote kind of how I acted in some ways that I thought could fit in, or that I thought would be acceptable. Whereas now I still perform, but there's something behind that. So I might make a sketch like, oh, that song is fine, but what is kind of behind that? So I'm experiencing, like, I'm curious about the next layer of that's kind of in my chest. What's the next layer? So that's what I'm working on now, that I think might be different from before. Because I can make up songs all day. Like I could perform you a cool, it's like a plumber might be able to, oh, that's bad, might be able to fix something. I don't really know anything about that, but I could perform. I could perform my duty, my role, right? Songwriter guy, boom, boom, boom. But I think I don't care so much about doing that anymore. It's wow. I kind of want something more from. I hope this feels a little bit vague, what I'm trying to say.
No,
are you able to hear what I'm saying?
It makes a ton of sense to me, and yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. I've been very, very curious about that concept that you brought up just a second ago, of like comparing yourself to your peers. I've been curious about that with songwriters for a long time. And most of the time when I ask that question, the answer comes back as, no, it's not a competition. I don't think about it that way. So I really appreciate that you opened up about that idea of like looking at people who are your peers and maybe trying to measure yourself against them.
Mhm.
Who were those people? I think I can probably predict, but who were those people? Because there are so many great songwriters, and there are so many now that we have access to. We never had this much access before, right? Now, with the internet, there's just so many. I was looking at the Grammy nominations, and I was like, Jesus Christ, there's so many great albums that got left out of all of this. And that's a whole nother conversation, but there have been so many great records this year, just alone. Not to mention all of the great songwriters who put out records in the last 20 years or 15 years. Who were those people you were comparing yourself against? And can you say a little bit more maybe about how you got past the comparison thing and just started to dive deeper?
Well, in 10th grade, I saw Hot Water Music.
Chuck's been on the show. Chuck Reagan's been on the show. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I felt a big smile.
I fanboyed out, man. I fanboyed out. Because, I'm in Florida, so Hot Water Music is, like I grew up on Hot Water Music. Anyway, sorry.
Well, in Saskatchewan, we had Hot Water Music too. In Saskatchewan, Canada, where I grew up. But when I was in a heavy metal band, we were full time, and that was my passion. And then when I went solo, I saw Chuck, and the spirit and energy in which he played, I aspired to. And I still, he's so special to me. He's like very special person to me. And I just thought if I could just sing and play like Chuck or in that world, or if I could just get around that light somehow but the funniest thing happened is it happened for me. I opened for Chuck. I got to sing with him. I went on tour with him. And then at the end of it, I was still like just me. So it was having that mentor was, it's like he showed me the light. And then now that happened, it's up to me now, kind of, So that's, it's not, I'm not really talking about comparing or competition. I'm talking about I feel the light from the other songwriters. And then it's almost like they pat me on the back and say, now what is important to you? What are you going to sing about? What's important to you? What does your voice sound like?
Wow.
How do you play guitar? Those types of things. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
I miss Chuck. I'd love to see him play again. But on the other hand, it's like it's always good to have different mentors, and to look around for different genres. And so in that sense, I am almost thanking my mentors and saying goodbye for now, because I'm going on a new thing.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. And you're fortunate to have mentors, but especially someone like that, right? Someone that good. I mean, Chuck's such a great songwriter and an incredible performer. And also someone who just like, I'm always amazed by people like Chuck who do a million things, right? He's got like a hot sauce company, and he's written a book, and like he's a fishing guide as a professional, all these things. You right now are working in mental health work, right? And how do you balance? That's a really emotionally taxing thing to do, I would think. And so how do you balance the creative life with the work that you're doing?
Well, I find that's a really good question. It's like a weekly consideration for me, because I'm really fortunate that the organization I work for provides counseling for the employees. So I take advantage of that.
That's great.
So I find that helpful. But I am in my music life. What I'm scared of my temptation to become a loner. you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I love solitude, and so, having that other thing in my life, you know, I earn a paycheck, which I need,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of aligns with some values that are important to me and is challenging to me.
Mm.
So I'm really thankful for the mix I have going.
Mm.
But the balance, I don't really know what to say about that, because it's just like we're talking, I'm like pretending to juggle,
Yeah.
because I don't really have an answer for balancing. It's just, it really is a juggling. The best thing is just to, for me outside of work, is to be honest with people in my life about what I'm going through. You know, so if something is tough at work, then just to tell someone, because if I don't, my things that I experience might come up and bite me, or I might act out of anger in a bad way or something like that. So it's kind of like making little payments. You know, I got to make little payments on. That's a horrible analogy.
No, it's not, because the bank account analogy works, because I think, you know,
or a garden.
Just you have to do the work. You have to do the work, right? And if you're not doing the work, if you have any struggles with mental health, and we talk about this a lot on the show, but if you have those struggles, I'm very open on the show about my anxiety, and of late a little bit more depression has crept in a little bit. And it's something, and I'm super fortunate to have a great therapist. So I'm able to keep those wolves at bay, so to speak, pretty well, I would say. But it does rear its head. I actually just discovered, I have this notebook that I'm using for my day job, that it was just it's so strange to me that I found it. I just happened to use it for what I'm doing every day. And I got to, there's like these journal entries, and now I do morning pages every morning, where I just do a brain dump, but I don't see it right now. But on one of these pages is me journaling about the first time I had a diagnosed panic attack. And it wasn't until 2012, even though I now recognize that I'd had many of them before. Right. But I just didn't realize what they were. And I at some point went to a doctor in my 20s, and the doctor said, I think you just have generalized anxiety, and I think you need to see a therapist. But my pig head just went, oh, I'm not doing that. Right. Like I still had in my head this idea that, oh, I can get through this. You know, I'm tough enough. Right. Rather than being able to do what you're talking about, which is to be open with people who love you and who need to hear that you're struggling, so that you aren't alone, so that you don't retreat, right? And being honest with yourself about that is really difficult the first time. I found, like, once I started doing that, it's all work. If I'm doing the work constantly, then it's not that difficult for me to reach out and ask for help. But if I go through a spell where I'm not looking for help, or I refuse to get help, right, that's when it becomes much more difficult for me to reach out.
Yeah, totally. As you're sharing, I was just thinking in my mind, new ways to be tough. You know, I had an experience recently where there was someone that I work with that we walk by one another, and I would sense I felt uncomfortable. You know, I felt uncomfortable, and I didn't know what I did, and so I went up to the person and I said, you know, I feel uncomfortable. Is there anything you'd like to say to me? And for me, I felt very tough doing that. And it sounds so basic. But you know, my cultural training or whatever would be like, you know, you fuck this guy, fuck this thing, like, you know, you talk shit behind someone's back, you know, but I would really like to be more tough in that way, right? You know, like I feel kind of uncomfortable. Like, is there anything you want to say? And when I said that, I was like, I felt like a lot of buzzing in my body. I was like, oh shit, what am I doing? But uh, you know, even sharing this with you, but I mean, that felt tough to me. Does that make sense?
It makes a ton of sense. I think that, you know, having those conversations, it is so much easier to let that go and let whatever that feeling is fester and let it become something bigger. It is easier to do that. Although of course, long term, it's going to be more difficult on you because it's going to impact your relationship with that person, the working relationship. Yeah. It's going to impact you physically and mentally, but it's very difficult because, man, we don't, most of us, and I think this is true of us sensitive creative folks, it's like, we don't want conflict. Like I just don't want to confront so often things that probably aren't big things at all. Right. So like, I don't know how that outcome was, but it probably wasn't a big deal. Right. There probably wasn't all that much there, but we don't want to like, and this is a very anxiety. This is very true of anxiety, is that so often anxiety will tell you something that is not even close to true. Right. So you make these anxiety creates these narratives in your head. And then when you actually confront whatever that thing was that you thought was going to be a big deal, it ends up being nothing. Right. Or it ends up being something very manageable that if you had just confronted it, then you'd be way better off and everybody would be fine.
Yeah, like you can handle it.
Exactly.
I can handle it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, and I find this really very helpful. And then also, I'm aware that, you know, on this record, it's like so much of it is I'm struggling with that, with kind of like saying the truth, because I don't know how I feel. You know, I don't exactly know how I feel. So I get to write a song, I don't know how I feel, whatever. So my poetry and writing, it comes out really clumsy, and I guess that's art. But I would like to keep growing in my art, so I am more direct with how I feel. Yeah.
That's a really nice place to be, though, to recognize that, and then to be able to look at the next project, whatever it is, and come at it with that approach. I feel like that's a really good place to be.
And maybe it's okay too, like for artists or singers who are listening, to be a bit more up in arms. Like, you know what? I've been years trying to sing. Or like for me, in my experience, I've been years trying to sing. I can't figure out how I feel. I can't figure out what to say, but I'm going to just do it anyway. And it's a mess. And it's, you know, there's angles to it, and sharp, and then really sweet, and kind of, you're like, well, Let Me Roar has a lot of different characters of me on there, you know? So, I think it's got to be okay to just be a little bit, you know, like here's table and here's the dinner of everything that's going on for me, you know? So,
I love that. And that comes back to that point you made about the toughness. There's a courageousness to that. If you're willing to put that whole table full of a meal out there, and to bear yourself in that way, that does take a lot, rather than, you know, kind of a nod sort of to what you were saying earlier about coming up in music, like getting to a place in your life where you go like, this is the thing I need to say, and I'm going to say it in this way. Like, I'm just going to let this out. And that kind of sentiment is what I hear on Let Me Roar. Is this like, this is the thing I have to say. I'm going to go ahead and say this thing in the way that I need to say it. And it resonates. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's,
well, I'm happy to hear that. Like that, when, you know, because when the record is done, I don't often go back and listen. I just kind of trust the process. I trust the feeling of when we made it. So when others say, you know, this is really timely for me, this really speaks to me, I smile, and like I feel a warmth, because I think, oh, that person is what feels like I might be feeling a little bit how I was feeling when I made the record. as an obvious statement of the year, but it's profound to me.
It is profound. Yeah. Sometimes we take for granted that things are obvious when they may not be, because you're feeling it so strongly. You're feeling that feeling so strongly. Sometimes when I know I'm guilty of this, at least, where I feel things really strongly and then I think it's obvious to somebody else. And then when I express that feeling, I get a head tilt, or someone kind of goes, "Oh, that's interesting." And I think, well, yeah, duh. We weren't all thinking that, but that's not all.
What a surprise.
Maybe if we just talked to each other and expressed how we felt a little more.
Funny.
I'd kind of like to get into the spirituality in the church a little bit. You grew up in the church. I grew up in the Baptist church, Southern Baptist church specifically. And I've really been reckoning with it a lot lately in sort of like how it has impacted me as an adult now. It's something that I'm constantly writing about and thinking about. Do you think is there a connection, and have you thought about this, between you're growing up in the church, going to seminary, and then also some of the mental health struggles that you've gone through? Are those two things related at all, either in a positive way or a not so positive way?
Oh, what a good one. I'm going to sit with that one for a second.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes these days when I think back on learning so much about the faith and religion, on one hand, I feel very grateful because I have a spiritual language. So during the virus, or as I'm working through, hope for the future, I'm really thankful for that. That the spring will come again and the rain falls on everybody. All of that type of spiritual language I'm really thankful for. And on the other hand, I carry quite a bit of anger and resentment that, like a soldier, I was trained very strictly on right and wrong and good and bad. Yeah. And, if you're not falling in line, then you should feel bad about yourself. And that's a lot of confusion, I feel when I think about myself as a 17-year-old or 13, I feel sad for him because, and the anger it's not really at anyone around me in particular.
Right.
So I'm still working through that, but there was like that force on me, that I feel bad for that young man who was kind of alone in there, who was alone in there with that pressure. And so those two, the balance is something that I, like my, in the song 9 to Midnight, it's a song that I want to write for my dad. So just kind of like a statue or whatever. If I was going to make a monument for him, this is the song, or I don't know if that's right, but like a letter or a poem for him. And he asked me the other day, why did you say in the bridge, I swore that I would never go back home? And I don't want to go home to that feeling, I don't want to go home to that, that aloneness in the strict religion.
How did he respond to that? How did he take that?
Very supportive,
yeah.
And just patient, and just very patient. Him and I, we go step by step together. And
that's great.
Yeah. So, I'm super lucky, and I had everything I wanted as a kid: hockey skates, anything.
Yeah.
Like even now, you couldn't find a luckier person. So
I think, yeah. Well, I think about that a lot, and I think, I've kind of come to a place at this moment, and I'm open to the fact that I might be wrong about this. I'm open to the fact that I might be wrong about everything, but I'm especially open to the idea that I might be wrong about what I'm about to say. And that is, I don't know. And I don't blame my parents at all. I respect their faith. They are still very devout in the church, and I respect that faith. I don't like two things about it. One, I don't like the evangelical idea of pushing your faith on someone else. I don't like that concept personally. I struggle with it. And the second thing I struggle with is, and again, I don't blame my parents at all for this, because I think they were doing what they thought was right. But I don't know that kids should grow up in the church. If you decide to go that direction later, then that's a decision you make as maybe a later teens or a young adult. But I've really come to that thought recently, and I haven't really read much about it. I'm sure somebody else has said this somewhere more eloquently than I am now, but I just think so much of those formative years, when you're feeling that aloneness with these thoughts that are so impossible to comprehend as a kid, I would argue are almost impossible for me as an adult to comprehend. But these questions of faith and spirituality, and introducing the idea of eternity into things, introducing the idea of either everlasting life or everlasting pain, like that's a breakthrough I made in therapy. That idea, I think, has caused a great deal of my anxieties later. That I'm still working through, and I'm doing better with, but it's still a lot. And so I'm circling back to the idea of the parent, having the grace to be able to say, okay, wait, my folks meant the best. Like, they loved me. They wanted me to be in the best. I'm, again, like you, I'm super lucky, right? I had everything I needed and more. And my parents were really, really hands-on in my raising. I'm super lucky. But a lot of those questions about spirituality, now the way I look at them, I think, I wonder how much easier I would have been able to deal with them at 17 or 18, rather than starting to, being told at 12 or 8 or 7. I mean, really, really young. And now that I think about it, some of the decisions that they were asking you to make about your everlasting future.
Right. Oh, you mean the religious moments and performative acts and standing before people.
They're heady things, that a 7-year-old is expected to do. And it's like,
I see. Oh, and it's like you didn't have the choice. You wish you had different choices.
Right.
You wish you didn't have to feel pressure to do and make those big religious acts, and because you wish you had just had more choice. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I also wonder how much now as an adult, how much my brain overstates some of those things. Like because as a 7-year-old, your perception of the world is so different. Even as a 12-year-old, your perception of the world is so different than when you become an adult. So were those things, did I have choices that I wasn't really aware of at the time? I don't think I did. I think it was, we're going to church on Sunday and we're going every Sunday, and here's the things that you do. Otherwise you're going to burn eternally in hell. But maybe not. Maybe there was more free will there than I realized at the time, which is another difficult thing to kind of deal with. And I guess that's my point, is that I kind of wish that it hadn't been introduced to me at all until I was a little bit late, a little bit more advanced in my life. Yeah,
because you feel the world, like you felt it very real. It was a lot to feel.
Yeah.
You know what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really intense, but that's, and that kind of music, thankfully, is such a great outlet for that. Creativity is such a great outlet for dealing with that. Right.
Well, when you were talking, I was thinking there's that one thing in the Bible. When I was a kid, I thought like a kid. I did my kid things. And now that I'm older, I think like a mature. Now I'm older. I think of older things. Right. And I was thinking about that Bible verse this week, because they come to mind all the time for me.
Yeah.
And I felt such a relief in that. It's like when I was a kid, I had all the right and wrong and the behavioral things. But now I'm older. The world is huge.
Yeah.
You know, there's beauty. There's all kinds of cultures. There's racial, social, political movement opening us up. There's all kinds of different people, different gender identities, ways to be. There's all kinds of I actually can, because of my maturity, understand a lot.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice, which is very nice.
Well, that's really
so
it's kind of exciting. And then you made me think about when you were talking about having that language to use to apply in especially during COVID and some of the challenging things that we're dealing with around the world right now. I have a colleague, a former colleague, just started a new day job, and my old job, I had this really good relationship with this colleague of mine, and she is a very devout Christian, and she asked for my number because she was like, let's stay in touch, you know? And she started sending me Bible verses every morning. And it's the kind of thing that I think if it was coming from a different messenger, I'd be pissed off about. And I can't fully articulate why, but I read every single one of them. And there's just something about it coming from her that I just have so much respect for her. And it's a fresh voice, you know, that I haven't had those kinds of conversations with. So having access to that language has been really helpful. It hasn't made me like pick up my Bible and start reading or to go to church or anything, but it has been really helpful to have that language to think through some of the things I'm facing every day. It's really interesting you brought that up.
Yeah, that's good to notice, I think, Jason, like the intention of the person, you know, the intention, like the heart, you know, it reminds me of, I was sitting in a circle with some folks, like a talking circle, and there was one older man that just started, we were talking about like a conversation like we're having now. And the man started reciting, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Mm-hmm. He leads me by the quiet waters and in the open fields. You know, he did the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And with what I was struggling with abusing alcohol and feeling trapped or whatever, it was that way the poem hit me. It wasn't even, it's beyond religion, you know, it's beyond any buildings or any structure, you know, it's just beyond that. So there is that layer of it that still moves me.
That's great. Yeah. I really like
so
that.
So that's like a text from your pal.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like you, like Bible's coming in hot. So I'm just like I get ready to like duck it, you know. Bible's coming in. No shit.
Yeah. I'm like in the Matrix all of a sudden. Dodging Bible verses. But for whatever reason, I catch these in my teeth, and you know, it's like that's so true. The intention is so important, and I think you can't fake it either. You know, intention comes through, and that comes through in art, right? If the song was meant, even if the literal meaning of the song isn't necessarily what you're grasping from it, the intention behind that music or that book you're reading, whatever it is gonna come through. Whatever that intention was, and if it was not made with intention, any real intention, a lot of times that falls flat for me.
Yeah, how cool. Yeah, will you say that was real? Will you say more on that?
Yeah, I think so. And I want to be careful because I don't want to talk shit about any particular type of music or any particular musician. That's not really what I do. If I don't like it, I don't talk about it most of the time. But even as a writer, like if I'm writing about a record, if I don't like a record, I don't write about it. You know, I'm not a critic in that way. But I think if something isn't made with an intention that has some deeper meaning, that falls flat for me a lot of times. And even if that doesn't mean that I can't have fun with like pop music or something, that doesn't mean that I can't have fun with something that's straight ahead rock, right? That's like not trying to say anything deep, but is just trying to, you know, kick your ass. But the intention is to kick your ass, right? And it's there, right? And so it doesn't have to necessarily be some rumination on life and death, but if the intention is there, I'm going to feel that and I'm going to be into it. Whereas when it's not there, when it's just going back to being performative, when it's just performative rather than there's some kind of intention I can sink my teeth into, I think a lot of times that falls flat for me and I just don't get excited. I just ignore, I leave that alone, whether that's a film or a book or a song. And it happens in music a lot, I think.
Yeah, it's not for you at that time. Yeah, or it doesn't. Yeah, I have to think more about that one, Jason. Yeah, because
me too.
Because I'm my concern is as a singer that that if I start saying these artists are cool, these artists, they aren't really feeling it, these artists are really feeling it, then I'm just weary of my judgments, you know. What I don't really, if something, a music comes along that I think, oh, I'm suspicious that's not sincere, it's probably not for me at that time. I don't know.
I like that.
I'm just because in indie, the guys with guitars and beards and me, and I've done this in the past. We're like, oh, that stuff's not authentic, you know. This, you know, like this, you know, this genre is not authentic, but it is, you know, like it is totally, you know. So, that's my own shit, by the way. That's my own shit, by the way.
No, I like that. I like that pushback. It makes me think about it in a different way.
Yeah, because songwriters, you know, just like, you got to be the smartest person in the room and really feel something deep. It's bullshit. You just have to write, you know, say, like, just do your thing.
Oh, you know, I like that a lot.
You know, so
yeah.
Was that okay? Was that?
I think it's great. No, I think it's great. And I also think it makes me think about it. It gives me a good kick in the ass because it makes me think about some of the things that I've been shying away from creatively lately. There's a lot of, I've been working on this. I've been trying to write about Waterliar's Roll On. It's the record I've been obsessed with all year. And I've been trying to write about it. And it used to be that if there's a record I'm obsessed with, it just pours out of me, right? The things I need to say come out. And then I do need to do a little editing, but for the most part, honestly, when I love a record like this one, it just comes out of me. And I've been working on this damn piece for like a month, and I just keep sort of over analyzing things and wondering if I sound smart and, you know, wondering if I'm giving it its due, you know what I'm saying? And it's probably fine. And even if it's not, it'll resonate with some people. It'll land in some places and it won't land in other places. And that's okay, because I need to get it out. You know, like the record has moved me and I need to get that out and I need to get it on paper. And it will land with some people. But beating myself up about whether it's like perfect or not is not doing anybody any good. Yeah.
Oh, that's so relatable. It's like, because there might be something about the record that's like, oh, I need to say a bit more. Like it's like so yeah, your choice is like, should I just let it out or put it out as it is, or should I dig deeper? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
It's kind of like it's kind of like when you leave the party. It's like, yep, see you there. See you later. See you later. No, see you Friday. No, see you Tuesday. No, I'll be there. Wait. You know, it's like, it's just kind of.
Do you go through that with your own records? And if so, like, how do you get to a place where you go like, okay, it's finished? Like, how do you know when the record is finished?
Um, I think the time constraints helped me on this one. Budget. But you're talking about the writing, not necessarily the session, right?
So yeah, I like both of those conversations.
Yeah, with the writing, I don't have any rules for how long things will take or whatever, because I think if this is really strange. I'll just go for it. I think if I was paying the bills with my music, if I had a mortgage, house payment, or if I was working, if I had a staff with salary, I would be more like, okay, every 2 years, let's keep it going, I think. But since I have this balance of a supportive partner in my own career on the side, I have that privilege of, no one's going to pass out if I don't sing to them in a year. Or I shouldn't be so crass. It's not, I don't feel as much pressure in that way. Although I do, on the other hand, I do have people that I play with that I wish we had more music work. So I've kind of gone on a rabbit trail. Will you help me recenter with your question?
Yeah. I mean, so my question basically is just, how do you know when it's done? How do you know when the record is done?
Okay, thanks. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's the end of the day and you walk away from the session.
Well, it sounds like you don't necessarily.
This is a horrible answer.
No, I think it's a good answer, because it sounds like you don't struggle with it. It sounds like you just kind of go, well, it's done. Is that accurate?
Well, or the other side of it is Let Me Roar is out and was recorded in the spring of 2019. And this thing is still not done. This thing is like, I'm still like talking about it, and like there's still lots about it I haven't dealt with myself, and it's so it's like a solid thing, but it's also totally air. So that's the side of it too. Like you heard about Leonard Cohen wrote Hallelujah for 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So I relate to that side of it too. So it can be either,
Yeah.
Man, I'm not very good at like straight answers when it comes to creativity, am I?
Well, it would be a less interesting conversation if you had just had one-liners, right? I like this, and I really appreciate your time, and I don't want to take too much more, but we usually end on what are you consuming now art-wise? What shows are you or records or just anything, that book you've read, something's got you fired up right now?
Okay, well, what was the well, I have some spiritual poems here, but I think I've said enough about that. Straight up, I've been listening to more Black music this year, and because I just came to grips that with a lot of Black music, I didn't listen that closely, and I listened generally to the hits and stuff, but that's I faced that, and that was positive for me. So
wow, that's great.
That's cool. I watched learning about Nas, the artist. I watched a documentary about that.
Oh, I saw. Is it the one? I think I saw the same one.
Yeah, about the album Illmatic.
Yep.
Which is from the early 90s.
It's what got me into hip hop.
And so,
yeah.
Awesome. So I'm on the right track here. Yeah. So
that record's amazing.
R&B, hip hop. This basketball show called All the Smoke, which kind of marries my love of sports and stuff like that. And so, I
don't know that one.
And then, I listen to country music, but for the most part, becoming more aware of more different cultures.
Yeah. I love that. That's maybe my favorite answer anyone's ever given to that question. That's great. Man, you've given me more than I could have expected. This is such a pleasure. I thank you for your beautiful record. Thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with us right now. This has been such a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. Nice to see you. Ed, thanks for the
Likewise.
visit.
I hopefully life returns to normal. Do you think there's a chance you'll tour at some point behind the record?
Yeah, I want to.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to. I miss touring. I'd like to go out and sing. And in the meantime, I plan to just. I'm having a good time writing these days. So, yeah, now that you ask, my dreams have started going for when that could happen again.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, but but I am just so and we're all starving for it. Obviously, we don't need to beat that dead horse, but like, I'd love to see you play, and I'd love to get to meet you in person at some point when it's safe to do so. And again, I'm just really grateful for your time. Thank you.
Okay. That's awesome. Later, Jason.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Years or more, drive away and never come home. Cut me loose and then you let me roar. There was a time when you had my back. Now I'm like the dust on the dash. You cut me loose and then you let me roar. Now I'm like the dust on the dash. Now I'm like the dust on the dash. Now I'm like the dust on the dash. Now I'm like the dust on the dash.
Northcote, y'all. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank all of you for listening. What an incredible conversation. You can find all things Northcote at northcotemusic.com. Grab a copy of Let Me Roar. You heard a little taste of the title track during this episode, and I would encourage you to listen to the rest of the record and all of his other wonderful music as well. Again, thank you so much, Matt. I just really appreciate your openness and your honesty. That was such a delight. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We love connecting on those channels. Every time you retweet us or share or reply, it makes such a big difference for us. Those are all free ways that you can support the show. Give us a 5-star rating on your app. Go ahead and tell a friend about the show. That makes a big difference too. Subscribe on your podcast app. Those are all really painless ways that you can help us. And above all, just listen. Keep listening and keep giving us feedback, everybody. It really helps. Tell us who you want to see on the show. I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but it makes a big difference, y'all. We have so many exciting guests coming up, and I'm so stoked. We have the great songwriter Christina Murray and I had a wonderful discussion a few weeks ago. I can't wait for y'all to hear that one. Jim Keller, who co-wrote 8675309, the legendary 80s hit from Tommy Two-Tone, and whose wonderful solo record comes out in February. He's coming up. I've got another guest. So many great things, y'all. We have a guest that I've been wanting to have on the show forever, since the beginning of the Marinade, since the inception. And I am so excited for the opportunity to sit down with this person. That'll be coming up in February because we're going to sit down later this month. But let us know who you want to see on the show. I'm open to suggestions, and we're really making a push in 2021 to do some different things. If you really like what we're doing, consider joining our Patreon community, where for just a few bucks a month, you can receive our Patreon exclusive show, Jason's Journey, where I talk about the stories behind the show and the moments that have shaped my creative life. We also release updates about the Marinade, like the one I just mentioned, all kinds of different things that you can do to connect with the show over there. It's a really fun community. We're like friends over there. It's really, really nice to be able to dive deeper about the show and talk about music and art and all the things that we're interested in. And if you can't swing that, hey, don't worry about it, of course, right? So we just appreciate you listening. I'm actually going to make an adjustment to the Patreon. So if you're at the $10 tier right now, I'm going to make Jason's Journey open to the $5 tier, and I'm working on what to provide for the $10 tier. If you can still swing the $10 tier and you want to stay there, please do, but I want to just try to make it more accessible for everybody. And make sure that you're getting value from the Patreon. So if you've been holding off on joining our Patreon community, for $5 you can get basically all the stuff so far. Okay, and if you can still swing $10 and you want to keep donating at that level, we appreciate it. But I just want to make sure that it's available to everybody that wants it, and I know that that's not always the case, especially in today's world. All right, y'all, that's enough of me selling you stuff. It's time for What I'm Getting Down On, the segment of the show where I talk about the art that is inspiring me at the moment. The Romanovs, y'all. If you listen to this show, you know that when I watch a TV show or a film, that I tend to get lost in it. I tend to only watch that thing, and I struggle to do much else in the moment. I can't scroll my phone very often if I'm watching something, unless it's just a really, really silly comedy. This is one of those shows that just came along at the right time. There's something that has happened, and I may talk about it on Jason's Journey on our Patreon, but there's something that's happened recently in my life, a really positive series of things that has allowed me to be in such a good place, in a good emotional and mental place. And my anxiety that I talk about on the show quite a bit has been cut by, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but I'd say 70%. I mean, I rarely deal with the same anxieties that I have for most of my life, and this has all come in the last couple of months. Just a series of things have happened that have allowed me to be in such a good place, and I'm really grateful to my support system. I'm really grateful to just to have the opportunities that I have to be able to go to therapy and to do all the things that I need to do to get right with myself. And what that has done then has allowed me to really focus on things. So either consuming art or creating projects, it has allowed for me to be very, very focused. And the Romanovs just came along at the right time for me. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. It's the same folks who created Mad Men. Each episode follows a character who claims to be a descendant of the Russian Romanov royal family. It's just wonderful, y'all. It's funny, and it's scary at times, and it's weird, and it's well acted. It's just they got heavyweight actors like Diane Lane in it. I mean, just amazingly done. So good. I've been reading everything I can get my hands on. I've been trying to consume as much as possible, both podcasts and articles about the rise of white supremacy in the United States. I've had some really difficult conversations with family members who are Trump supporters lately. I've really been wrestling with for years now, obviously, what to do about that terrible phenomenon that is Trump and his supporters, and what has brought it on, and how you deal with that. I mean, there's so many factors between the evangelical church and between the misinformation from Fox News and OAN, and now just crazy blogs all over the place. And of course, all of that culminating with an attempted coup, and just trying to figure out how I navigate that. What is my role as an average citizen who has lots and lots of family members and people that he grew up with who are Trumpers, and I'm sure most of you can relate in some way. So I've been listening to Throughline, the podcast, NPR podcast. They have a lot of really great stories about some of the history of conspiracy theories. There's a great episode on that. There's a great episode on the rise of white supremacy in the United States. There's a bunch of great episodes on that show. I had mentioned it before a while back because I listened to an episode about the power of the presidency, which is one of my pet issues, that I just think it's crazy how much power we as a society have allowed the president to continue to gain. I don't mean this president, I mean any president to continue to gain, even though the Constitution really severely limits presidential power. And so that's a really great listen as well. But Throughline has been a wonderful place to go. And then I've just been devouring all the articles that I can about what has led to this place in American history, and sort of what is my role, as an average citizen within my family, within my community, to try to combat white supremacy and an anti-democratic movement that we're seeing in this country. So that's kind of been my focus, but I've been reading Gabino Iglesias's Coyote songs. I don't want to say too much about that yet because I'm loving it, and I want to say more about it later. I've been following him on Twitter for a long time. He always gives great encouragement for writers. So I've really been loving that, but I don't want to get too deep into it yet because I want to save it for a later date. As far as listening goes, I am not going to tell you what I've been listening to. And the reason why is because I've been listening to, you got to join the Patreon if you want to know. The reason why is because I've only pretty much exclusively been listening to one person's body of work. And this person's body of work is ridiculous. Like, there's just so many records to go through between his solo work and his work with his various side projects and bands. So if you want to know what I'm getting down on music-wise, join the Patreon, and you can do that for as little as $2 a month, and you can get that notification for $2 a month, or for $5 a month, you can get Jason's Journey, which I owe my Patreon patrons for this month, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and record that right away. Y'all, Matt Goud, Northcote, listen to his music. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.